Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, hi everybody. Well, welcome. This is the Animation Educators Forum, Birds of a Feather talk. I know there was a bit of a mix-up on the program where it had my computer an animation history talk, and apparently those two got garbled. But this is a conversation about and with animation educators about topics affecting us working with our individual students. So if you want the computer history thing, you're welcome to talk to me afterwards or buy my book. So anyway, I'm Tom Cito, the incoming chair of animation at USC. And I'd like to introduce some of my colleagues who've come for today. My co-chair is Chuck Green, and Chuck, I'm sorry, what's your school again?
Cal State Fullerton.
Cal State Fullerton, that's right. Yeah, actually, let's do this. Let's just go around the room and people just, like just the principals tell us, your name and what school. So Sheila, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Sheila Sophie, and I'm an associate professor at USC, and I'm a colleague of Tom's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lee?
I'm Lee Crow, and I'm an adjunct professor at the Art Institute of California, North Hollywood, and Woodbury University.
Okay. Patrick?
Patrick Dayfree. I am an adjunct instructor at Weston College in Anaheim and part of the AES steering committee.
And I'm Dory Herrick, and I'm chair of the program at Woodbury University, the animation program, and also a member of the AES steering committee.
Yeah, Aubrey?
Hi, I'm Aubrey Mintz. I'm head of animation at Cal State University Long Beach and also co-chair of the Animation Educators Forum steering committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ellen, you made it! Yay!
Yay! Late Ellen Besson.
Okay.
I'm Ellen Besson. I former faculty at Sheridan College, but now teach online and independently with one-on-one mentoring and author of Animation Unleashed.
Okay, and we heard you had a little bit of a head problem, so we'll keep everybody will not play their orchestra cymbals during the session.
Karen Sullivan's in the steering committee.
Okay, yeah, Karen.
Oh, Karen Solomon.
Oh, she is.
Bring the counterpart designs here and set up.
Yeah, so we have folks from all over North America and stuff. So I see my colleague Chris is here from Sheridan College, from Canada. And the fun part about these meetings, and we've been doing these for a few years, is we get a lot of people from different parts of the country. And a lot of times, I think last year we had folks from Australia, we had folks from Germany, all kinds of, even Brooklyn. Oh my goodness. So, anyway, generally we have a general discussion, but feel free. It's a pretty open discussion, so feel free to join in. When you are recognized, please state your name and what university you're affiliated with, if any. So, okay, all right. So, our topic.
Our topic is film festivals, helping students navigate the maelstroms,
Mm-hmm.
put it, Tom?
Yes.
Of the film festival.
The swirling hell.
Scene, yeah. And so we asked some people who we have here, you've just met, to maybe share their thoughts on the challenges and the pros and the cons and things we think students need to know and understand about film festivals, specifically as it affects them as animation students. So maybe we could go around and we just get an initial take from the panel.
Mm-hmm.
You guys could tell us what you think animation students need to know about film festivals.
Yeah, I'd like to start off with Sheila because Sheila distributes her own features. She creates her own shorts which she distributes, and she has a feature out now that's going around. So just to hear from you about how do you think the market, or how do you think the climate for self-distribution has changed over the years?
Right. Well, it's a great question. Distribution for short films has always been problematic. I have 6 short films that I've made, and the work that I do is primarily documentary animation, and the most success I've had has actually been in educational markets, and only one of my films has really turned a profit. It's a 16-minute film, which is a perfect length for education, and that's an animated documentary on domestic violence. So that one's still being distributed. But most of my other films, they've been in compilations on DVDs, and they've been distributed in other ways, but they've never really seen a profit. But nowadays, of course, there's Vimeo and YouTube, and there are people that are successful. Vimeo, they have a tip jar, but nobody tips. But YouTube, some people have been successful. I know my husband made a film that went viral, but he never saw a penny from that. And the feature film landscape has changed quite a bit. I mean, the traditional landscape is the distributors are still trying to distribute in this old method. But it's been changing dramatically with people with streaming videos and iTunes and Netflix and all these different places. So so people are trying to adapt. So for my work, it's a little odd because it's animation and documentary hybrid. So people don't really know what to do with it. So I'm right now, like you said, doing more self-distribution. Although I'm hoping to get some help with that. But it's definitely a complicated scenario in terms of film festivals. I think, that's a great way to find distribution because so many distributors actually attend these festivals, and if you get a buzz for your film, it definitely helps. I mean, when my film was shown at Annecy in Ottawa, it helped tremendously because more people were suddenly very interested in it. So I think film festivals are an important part of the discussion, and it's hard because, you get tons of rejections, it's expensive, it's really difficult, but it's still really an important part of the process, I think.
Yeah. Ellen, you want to jump in?
Yes, actually, I should mention in the context, I also have run film festivals. I was the creative director of the Kalamazoo Animation Festival, which was an interesting process of trying to boost a festival up to the next level so it would become more effective. And what was interesting about that was it found that the juggernauts were about studios and students and was coming together in one place and creating this community. What I would say is there are festivals and festivals, and especially if you're coming in, you're doing out of your own pocket. Finding out what you can. Some festivals are going to be way more effective for you than others. Some of the smaller festivals, it's really, for better or worse, more like the dog and pony show. It's really about the relationship between a local audience coming in to see a few films. There's not much that goes on filmmaker to filmmaker. The ones that get a group of people in that creates it, maybe in terms of your networking and advancing, those are the ones that are, of course, Ottawa gathers that big group in. Annecy does the same thing. Some of the medium-sized festivals do it as well, but you have to do your research and make sure that since you have limited resources, limited time, I've dug in with the spray data. It's not as effective as picking a smaller number where you have a greater chance of doing well. That said, on the other hand, if your film does not do well where you think it will, i.e. say the direct animation festival, there are other festivals, and maybe that you'll have more success. I had a film once that I thought was going to be for animation. It was much more for the experimental market. And that opened up a whole different world to me of connections and all kinds of interesting things. It's affected my work ever since. So try where you think you're going to go. If you're not being successful, don't keep hammering at it. Consider maybe there's facets of this film I haven't seen before. So encouraging your students to figure out what they've got is also part of the issue.
One of the issues that comes up a lot of times too is that when it comes to competing for things like in the Motion Picture Academy, you're going for short or you're going for student Oscar. Some groups like the Academy consider that if you post online, that's the equivalent of like running it on television, it's broadcast. So they actually have disqualified films in the past because they run online. And some film festivals that you could enter in, and you're accepted, will take your film and just put it on their website online as like the example of their festival. So it's kind of a dangerous thing. You have to kind of keep an eye on that if your goal is to try to compete for something like the Oscar. I'm on the executive board of the Oscar, the animation division of the Oscars, and every year we diddle the rules. We keep accept a few, take some out. Like this is the first year we're allowing screeners. Before you had to go to the movie and you had to sit and watch the movie in the theater, and now they've sort of loosened it. But there's a list. If you go on the Oscar website, there's a list of preferred festivals that are considered, for Oscar consideration. They have a whole list, and they revise that list every year. Like, what's interesting was this year they knocked out SIGGRAPH. They dropped it because they said a long time ago SIGGRAPH was about really cool shorts like Luxo Jr. and all. Now it's like they said the electronic theater is mostly demo reels. It's just more samples than real films and everything. So that could change and it could go back. But I was kind of surprised when that happened. So.
Can I jump on that? Because we're still listening to the answers to these questions, but I think that something you just said and just some of the things you guys have said, I'm wondering about some clarification, and that's the goals. You said, depending what the goals of the student are, if they want to win awards. And I would say one of the things I'm curious about is what goals or what things do you think a student's going to be able to accomplish? I mean, you talked about making network connections and stuff like that, and how you had more success. And I'm wondering how that success is measured, and how does that relate to the students? And that, I think, jumps off of both of what you're saying. It relates to maybe this overall question: what do you see as being about festivals being about?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe addressing what those goals would be, what you think a student's going to benefit.
Yeah.
I request that because of all the excess noise, people think it ever just speak louder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Project.
Yeah.
We'll pass around a megaphone.
We're talking to a room of teachers here. You think we know how to project?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Lee, do you want to jump on this?
Yeah, I want to give a little personal background. I grew up in Georgia, in suburban Atlanta in the 60s and 70s, and then I came out here in the 80s and 90s and worked in the industry. And then I went back to Georgia to get my master's, and that's where I began teaching, and I spent 12 years there, and I've been back here 1 year. And the reason that I bring that up is that it was a festival. I mean, I loved animation since I first could watch it. But it was a festival that I saw as a teenager that made the shift for me, that helped me to understand that it was an art form, and wow, these are artists, these are like moving paintings, wow. It was a festival that had a lot of National Film Board stuff in it, late 70s, experimental animation, and so forth. So for one thing, festivals are inspirational. I think they can be more inspirational than commercial films. And then the other side of this now, I've been working at a college that accepts low socioeconomic students that may not have an opportunity to see as many things as everyone else. So I encourage my students to enter their films into the small potatoes festivals. I don't know how I would live without a box. I submit everything through Without a Box. And you can search festivals all over the world, including the ones that either don't have an entry fee or have a very, very low entry fee. And I think the value in that is simply to get your stuff on a screen in front of an audience. And if it's local, that's even better, because then these people who never had the opportunity before can go to a theater, see their film on a screen with an audience, hear the audience laugh or react however. And it's a completely different experience than they've ever had before. So that's one of the greatest benefits right there. It's just I would encourage people to enter any tiny little festival you can.
And that's a really good point. To be able to attend the festival that your film is screening is wonderful, because it's a great networking experience. Yeah, and I met the DP for my current film at a film festival that I went to, and you meet all kinds of people, and especially if you're looking for work or whatever, it's just a great experience to be able to network at these festivals and to just show it from an audience and get that response.
Can I jump in too as well? My name is Scott Angelo. I teach at the Art Institute of Orange County. And I went to USC, and I have to agree two things about film festivals. One is you learn how to represent yourself. You have to be professional, you have to put a synopsis together, It's so important before you get that job. And the other thing I learned was asking about that entry fee. I always emailed every festival and I said, look, I have no money, I'm a student, I'm struggling. Could you waive the entry fee? Many times they said yes. And yes, small festivals, just to see your film, meet with people. I also work with people I've met at film festivals. It's an amazing opportunity.
And I think when you do ask, it's important, like you did, to have a personal note, because when it's a generic thing, they'll often just say no. But if you explain your situation,
exactly, and articulate why you would like them to be. And the big festivals also are just amazing, just to see what's going on in the world. Yeah.
I think she's got a really good point. The festivals need good programming, and we've had a lot of success emailing the festivals and going, will you waive your fee? We'll send you 10 films, and we almost always say yes. So because if they've already seen some of the films, or yours is already on the table and they like it, they want that. They want good programming in their festival. And so we've been pretty successful in getting fees waived as well.
Karen, just to ask her a question, because she was talking about it, I'd be interested in So as a school, you send in a whole reel of film.
Yeah.
That was your sorry.
Yeah, we do. We don't send all the films. We have what's called a highlight reel, and so at the end of the year, there's a jury, an outside jury and an inside jury. We're like the top. I don't know. It's anywhere from 8 to 15 films that the students produced, and we do distribute and promote those, and we give our whole festival list to all the other students, so at least they know where the films go, and we'll send them a whole reel of films.
I'm kind of curious, I'd like to ask this as a straw poll of the floor. How many people here teach at schools that enter festivals for their students rather than having the students enter them?
And I will.
4, 5. Well, some of you teach the same
Yeah.
students.
Double up here. That's it.
But I will say that I teach team production classes, so we do group films a lot more than we do individual films. And then I'm the one that's responsible for getting it on Without a Box, and then the school actually reimburses me the entry fee. So those of you that are teachers and students, ask your college, see if they'll cover that entry fee for you.
I also wanted to mention, I think, jumping off from what you said, it's also really important to enter animated films into live action festivals because it's great for programming and they love it, and your competition is less. And so many people don't enter the live action festivals, and oftentimes you can do very well. They love programming a short in front of a longer film.
Yeah. There's also the idea, and this is, again, whether it's the school does it or you're encouraging your students, there's specialty festivals. So if it happens that the film has a particular background it's coming from, there are festivals that specialize in music, or there's Jewish festivals. There's all kinds of festivals of that sort.
Or dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
The big festivals that want films for dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And Chinese filmmakers.
Yeah.
Festivals you want.
And your film can really stand out in those ones. So again, it's still legit. I mean, it's crazy. We live in an age. It's a little bit older thing that how unusual it is for someone to see their film with an audience.
Yeah.
But in terms of just the pure learning, I know students are often terrified of that moment, and of course, if put online, you don't have to quite face your fear of this moment. But it actually is a good thing for them to go through.
You find out where the response is
It's
coming.
I always tell them, treat this not as you putting your soul out there. Treat it as part of your education. How are you going to know if you're communicating or not? So any opportunity to see it with a group, because you kind of see it through the group's eyes, is one of the most incredible, rapid learning processes for them. To know sells or doesn't sell, work or doesn't work, what do I need to change? It's a fantastic thing. You really can't get it any other way.
Yeah. Dave wanted to get it.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of bring up the other side of the coin in terms of the dark side of the festival stuff. One thing my wife and I have discussed is this notion that there's so many festivals now that there are some that are, well, there's no other way to put it other than scams, basically,
Yes.
where
That's
at
true.
the festival
That's
you
true.
submit, you can even win a prize. There's no screening.
But then you have to pay for the prize.
Yeah, and you pay for the prize to get it, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think it's also important to caution the students that they need to read carefully, and if it is on like a little festival that doesn't have a lot of, to research that a little bit before you get caught. Because, it's also managing expectations, because if you go to one of these little local festivals, it may be great to have it on a big screen, but you also may only have 12 people in the theater with you, so, you need to understand, kind of, so they don't get crushed by the fact nobody came to see my film. Well, it's this, maybe it's the festival's first year, or, you had a tough time slot, or whatever.
But the great thing is now there are actually festival review sites. There's two that I know of. There's Film Festival Lounge and Film Festival Life, and there may be more, but it's served me well. When I got a bad vibe off a festival, I checked on the review sites and learned a lot. So that's a new thing, that now filmmakers themselves are reviewing the festivals, and you can learn from
They
them.
used to do it without a box, but they shut it down.
That's interesting.
Well,
Yeah, they
when
shut down
you
for it.
talked about the bad vibes, we just had one that went past all of that.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say
And by Film Festival
it would be
Life.
great if, as a community, you guys could post that to the forum.
Yeah.
Because one that we found recently, like we got a poster. I don't know if you guys got it at your schools. It said, win $25,000 for top prize, and I was about to post it, and I said, what, let me at least research this. And I went to the website. They have a full website, but in the fine print it said, if yours is chosen, you will
just
be
submitting. You gave them the rights.
yeah.
to it.
If you submit, you give them the rights to use it in any capacity.
Oh,
Like
wow.
in
Well,
like
I wanted to jump in and say that.
distribution,
That's
yeah.
not the only time. I've seen more than one of those. And just jumping off on your
Yeah.
scam thing, a lot of these scam festivals call themselves competitions, not festivals.
Yeah.
And they give an award, which doesn't have any real meaning. They're just collecting the $50 entry from everybody sends it in, and then they just pick something and give you an award. So you won the platinum award, and you won, and so someone can put that on the laurels on
Put it on a
it.
resume.
And
So they're buying the award, but these people are raking in the money. And what Aubrey's talking about is very concerning. I've been seeing more and more of this,
Yeah.
where it's schools. Sometimes use the term school associated with them too. School or competition or festival, and you submit something to them, and then they have something written in there that says they own the work that you submit, or these competitions. So there are some really concerning, I think, really concerning scams. But even on a smaller level, one of the things to be sensitive to, Ellen, you said you want to know what are the good festivals, what are the bad. How do you know?
Yeah.
And when you talk about networking, who's going to the festival? Who's going to see this film? That's why I talked about goals. What's the student's goal with making this film and in entering festivals? Because it does cost money. It can cost thousands of dollars to do the whole film festival circuit if you really want to get your film seen. It is great to see it with an audience. I agree. There's something really exciting about that, and scary too. But that's fun. But if you have it in that festival, and I think for live action, festivals tend to serve them more than for animation. I don't think as many animation studios and representatives are out there at these festivals looking at that potential. And you talk about distribution. For a 2-minute film, what kind of distribution are you going to expect?
much,
And with the internet competing today, if you're talking about exposure, why do the festivals? And Tom, you talked about the Academy Award, but is the Academy Award going to get the person a job? I don't know. I mean, this is part of what we need to, I think, figure out.
Okay.
And there isn't just one. I don't
No.
think it's yes or no.
No,
It
no.
really depends on those ultimate goals.
But the festivals can help you get to those goals, even though it's not a surefire
Maybe.
thing. You can't necessarily expect to get distribution or get a job by even getting into one of the better festivals, but it definitely helps get your film, even the buzz online. You can put your film online, but that doesn't mean anybody will see it. But if you get a
But it's
buzz on
easier.
your film,
And if you look at the Sanjay and Craig story, the
But you
guys
can
who
do
created
both.
that cartoon, they had their stuff online. That's how Nick found them. But then you have something like 9, where I guess someone saw it at the festival and it gets developed into a feature film. But so I guess I don't think there's a yes or a
That's
no.
the point.
And
It depends on you and the film and the circumstances
Yeah.
and your finances.
And again, the
Yeah.
festival and
Yeah.
who goes? Do
Yeah.
these animation studios go?
So only
They,
the
they,
biggest
they go to
ones.
Summit, but of course, it's the ones
Ottawa?
Ottawa certainly.
Ottawa, Annecy.
I mean, part of it is, do they have a
Someone's
market?
done that,
You know,
somebody-
if they have a market, I'll be quick on the list. If they have a marketplace going on, look and see who's coming to that market. I mean, do they have a place where you can pitch? If you're actually looking, say, to turn your 2-minute thing into a series, for example, that gives you a chance to talk to people
And
you've
Palm
never talked
Springs has got a big market.
Yeah, Ottawa does too.
I think when it comes down to online or festivals, it really depends on the content of the film and I think the audiences that you're trying to reach. It's kind of like how people often have a stereotype of, well, this is what an Academy Award film is like. This is what a Sundance film is like. If a student has something that's very pop cultural in nature, the content of the film is very light, it's 2 minutes, it's kind of leading up to a certain type of joke, maybe sometimes filled with references, online might be the way to go. The audiences and the types of content and the way people interact with content online is different than someone sitting in a theater watching something a bit more considered. So a film like 9, which I think was at SIGGRAPH, was recepted by a different audience, a different type of audience because of its content. Might not done as well online as kind of something like a Sanjay and Craig's creators behind that's work. So certain films I think are maybe better suited for online audiences because the types of things that go viral, the types of things that will cross an executive at a network's desk is maybe different than the people who attend the film festival. So the content I think of the film, the style, maybe is a determinant of maybe which festival to do or whether online is more appropriate.
Okay, so this brings up another the second large topic, which is online, and that is there's a thing that's happening in our age that didn't exist 10 years ago, whatever it is, this prevalence of Vimeo, YouTube, Hulu, whatever, kind of like sites, and that are very hungry for content. And about 10 years ago, people worried about the shorts in general, thinking there's no market for anything. There's no way to run shorts unless in a compilation in the theater. Now with these websites, and there's so many opportunities to post your stuff. But then the question is that do the sites own your exclusive rights to your film? Are they profiting off it while you're like entering it for free, or is it as free and easy as like YouTube used to be? Like, what's the we know that there's a proliferation of these sites, and they're all hungry for content. But what's the motive?
Yeah, again, I think you need to be circumspect, because I know there was someone who was, they were the guys who had been selling TV Pink. They started one of these sites, but they're going to own the content you uploaded. So yeah, it was specific for animation, and that was, I don't think it ever took off, but they made that attempt. And I know YouTube recently made some changes to the ways that they give you money, and it negatively impacted animation because it wasn't on hits, it was on how many uploads that you made. So I mean, they're changing these rules, and I know back when Adam Films was around, I used to get money from that all the time. Then that kind of went belly up. I was doing that, but yeah.
So you said that Without a Box used to have some sort of a feedback
forum,
forum, and now they don't have it?
They shut it all down. Oh yeah, Without a Box has gone through some weird stuff, and I would say they were better. They got acquired by some people.
Yeah, did they get bought by somebody?
Yeah, and isn't there a film festival highway or something? I haven't looked into them that much. I haven't been trying to market a film lately. So.
The reason that I bring it up is that I assume that Without a Box would be somewhat safe. They're connected with IMDb, and I figured
there have been some issues with Without a Box, and
that they would not be connected with the scammy kind of.
They shut down those forums.
They don't. They're not as good as some of the other sites at shutting things down. Some of the festivals there aren't as good. But I actually, now that you mentioned that, I wanted to add one more indicator.
I bought into it like the first year I started.
But you had said that competition was a key word. Another one is awards, because there's like the Alaska Film Festival and the Alaska Film Awards. And the awards, they don't show anything.
They don't show film.
But they'll give you awards, but you have to pay for the awards. So, but that happens in other states too. So you have to be very careful.
You do have to be circumspect, and you're effectively buying an award.
Yeah.
You're buying.
And but people know which festivals are more credible than others.
Part of the problem too is also like all this is my mind is swirling just in this conversation, and not everybody has time or the right skills even to go out and figure this out. If there's some way to start finding some way, and it changes all the time, where there could be some kind of group decision to. Where you add what you know somewhere.
Well, that's why review sites are so valuable.
Yeah, but I think maybe looking on an educator's level where you know for sure that it's being done for the students for the right reasons, that the people who are contributing. It's just a thought, because it's too much for any one person to have to follow all the time at this point. There's every person has a different opinion, partly because they may have just read the page 2 days after you did. I mean, it can literally be that close. I mean, the practicality of finding some way to share it.
It is nice to have that interaction, though. Yeah. To have the review sites is so helpful. I know when I'm submitting to festivals, I'd always read what people had to say about them and how you get treated by the festival. If you bought into this whole thing, I'm going to do the film festival thing, having that interaction is really nice. Like Newport Beach is wonderful. They treat you really well. Temecula Valley, some of the local ones I've been involved with my film, great people. And then I had some real good experience with Rhode Island, and I just had a film screen last week, and this film I completed in 2007. I haven't been trying to get out there at all. They just called me up, and it was Southeast New England, and there's some really good ones, and it's nice to be able to have that interaction. And
some really bad
online.
ones.
And that's the thing. There's some really bad ones too, and that happens.
Well, the part of the thing of that is to be aware of, even if, like some festivals now, say like Ottawa, I would say, the screenings are almost separate from the market. The screenings are
in Annecy as well.
I know. So, but nevertheless, if as a student you go and get your film accepted, what it does do is you're there on a different, for a big festival, you're there on a different status. You're not just a kid milling around. You're a filmmaker, which means you have a right. You're going to be on a panel, hopefully somewhere along the line with other filmmakers who are more established. It's a way to open the door, especially if you're a little shyer. So the advantage is just to get in, it changes your status in the world. It means you've completed something, which is a very good goal. And it means once you're there, you're already in a different status, which may make it easier to go to talk to people, to extend your network in a way that you wouldn't do if you just showed up for the sake of being there. So even though the screening itself, sadly, might not be that influential, it giving you the right to be there at this status can be extremely useful.
Yeah, I also add to that, because I actually was one of the first students from US who got into Hennessy, and that opportunity to meet with people, it doesn't matter who shows, it's not the companies that come in to scout, it's you being the person who made that film, making connections. That's so valuable.
Can I
Online, you can't do that.
I want to throw out a controversial statement that I'm not saying I agree with, but was made by an animation professional to a group of students of mine, and I'll raise your might have been, I don't know if you guys are doing it during the group yet. And that animation professional was reviewing some student work, and she asked what it was to do with, and she said it was work related to a student film she was making. And she said, I don't think you should be making a film. You need to focus on the aspect of animation that you would like to ultimately do as a career.
This comes to the issue of the student's goal. So it's just about getting a job.
Well, there you go.
Right.
That's why.
Exactly.
Let's come around to that again. But I think again, it's not right or wrong. But I did want to throw that out there. I don't agree with that statement. I think there's a lot to learn, and it doesn't even have to mean entering film festivals. But there's a lot to learn through the filmmaking experience. I don't agree with that statement, but I also think that there is some truth to that need to focus, especially if that is what you're trying to do.
Who was it that said that?
I'm not going to.
I mean, I don't mean like
a very respected, accomplished, successful animation professional is what I will say.
Yeah.
But to get
Working
an
in feature films.
To get an entry level position, you don't need to make a film, and if that's all your goal is to get in that entry level position, stay there. Don't make a film.
Well, she's not talking about entry level. She's talking about being an accomplished person doing what it is she does.
But what specifically does she do? I mean,
visual development.
Okay, so
visual development. Okay.
Yeah, but of course, making a film gives you experience on all aspects of production.
Exactly.
So.
I agree with what you're
So at
saying.
least you can communicate with.
But
And visual development people are illustrators.
Okay,
They're not filmmakers.
Hi, my name is Will. I
Will,
teach at Riverside City College, and I run a RCC Animation Showcase. And I think we keep talking about the exposure and networking and all that, and ultimately we're talking about the student success. And I think we have to look at the fundamental reason why making a short film. Learning the pipeline of animation and such problem solving, right? Going from the pre-production to the production to the post-production, where one of my students approached me and then was having a hard time with walk cycle, which I helped. But then the more the students realize, the more they work on their own film is they can go online and find how to animate a take or how to animate walk cycle, how to use certain tools in After Effects. But then that's not necessarily the reason for them to be at college. The reason is so that whether they get it from the teacher or online or their own research or self-study, this whole process of making a short film itself is already it gives them opportunity to learn all those processes and really do a critical thinking about where they're heading to with their goal. And so I think there's just making a short film itself, there's a really big value in that. But not every single school has, like, for example, animation showcase or animation screening, because some schools have different focuses for different kind of, like, even in one school, at USC or Cal Arts, people have different interests. They'll pursue different goals, like honing down like particular skill to apply for a company or completing a film for different purposes that we've been discussing. But I think it comes down to the fundamental reason why making a short film is not necessarily just so that you can call yourself a filmmaker and just go around the film festival circuit, but learning from the process of making a short film.
Yeah, Karen.
I think that making a film and showcasing your skill set are not mutually exclusive. And I actually think that might be a really good panel for us to propose some here, is to how to design to make a film that will also show off your skill set. So if you want to be an animator, what are the assets you need to focus on in your short film? If you want to be a model, letter, texture, how do you design a story and a project that will show off those skill sets and still take you through that pipeline and let you do the circuit. Because I don't think those are mutually exclusive things. And I think but I don't think students often think about that. And I think if you're smart at the planning stage, you can do both.
It's cool because you can even do that if your intention is to do backgrounds or settings or whatever. You can tell a film almost entirely through those elements or even special effects with no character animation whatsoever, and it's a really interesting challenge, you know, to take things in that direction. So it's an incredibly good point.
Barbara, did you?
Go ahead.
I worked at this one school, Vancouver Film School in Canada, and we fully supported doing the short film idea, and it was really, really important. But what happened when you're saying it's not mutually exclusive, it's true that you can show skills. My mind is going like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But what happened is sometimes people would take on a short film and they weren't good enough to get a job from them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they couldn't get employed because they're
Well, you know what I find is they need advice on scope. That what they'll do is they'll plan a film that's too big to produce to the time that they have.
Absolutely.
With the skills that they have. And so that's where I think not enough people say, no, you gotta really cut that down by another minute.
We called it
Can't
dreams
do that.
watching. We called it dreams
Yeah,
watching.
it's always an issue about channeling like their ambition, though, because I noticed that, like, you know, we have students who do a lot of experimental film, and I had one student who was like, I don't want to be a jobs monkey, I don't want to be a wage slave. And then the last 3 weeks before graduation, Mr. Cito, how do I get a job?
So that's my point. Is that it would be great if the program could make sure that there's a space for the film and space for people who might
the
not
show
really
reel.
come up.
Yeah.
Separate show reel.
I'm also curious whether, you know, your experience with that professional, because I've heard that occasionally from the sense I've gotten is often it's the bigger message is studios saying we want you to make your students to fit our situation physically.
Absolutely.
And that I so totally disagree.
It's a
with.
very
It's
locational. I don't agree with the point of view, but I also see
important to note
that
that.
the industry does ask you to be excellent, and it's not just that they were visual development artists; they were speaking in a general way. But I don't agree. I think that I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think that experience is important. I also, I mean, at least with our program, we have opportunity for students to have a class where they're building a reel that focuses on an aspect of animation production,
Right.
where they also make a film. They make the film earlier, and different people structure different ways. So, but I think it's part of this discussion of the festival focus too, because I think Karen, you made a point in one of our steering committee meetings about whether the festival serves the school or the student more. Sometimes the festivals serve the schools.
And the marketing that film gives the school.
Yeah, and I don't. That to me sometimes kind of like I don't like that. You know, I want to do what's best for the student.
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I'm actually a student at Utah Valley University, and I have been working on this short film for my senior project, and I can confirm that depending on the film that you're working on, you can learn quite a bit about the scope and the process in which it goes through, especially if it has potential behind it that you can put it in a film festival. So, but there have been a lot of other films that my school has produced that have just been dropped entirely because the students behind them didn't have the motivation, or it was just, or the film itself was just not working out at all.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you want to compare filmmaking to skill sets and jobs, I think we can. I think there's definitely a market for that. But if you're looking at filmmaking as an artistic expression or something that you really want to say, or you have a unique voice, to me that's the beauty of making a film. It's like you have your chance now to do something that's completely you, and then you will have your time to get into the work world. So I feel I'm going to slightly disagree with what Karen was saying, because I feel that if you put those limitations up front and say, okay, you want to be an animator, let's make your film animation heavy, then it almost becomes like a commission or an assignment, as opposed to, well, let's start with the ideas. Let's see who you are, what's your film that you want to tell, and then, okay, well, you also want to animate. I think it should be a secondary thing. You say, okay, make sure you have some awesome scenes in there, but I think it needs to come from a root of the core of your story. That's just my belief.
It's actually it's dialogue. And every time, I don't know that we certainly put that out there for the students, like if you already know that you suck at animation, let's try to go over here, but usually they come in and they pitch something, they pitch what they love.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, that's what you love, now how do we play with your toys in your sandbox to also, give them what you love, what you want to do.
Sorry to probably. But I think that it's an important discussion though, because so many people think of their film as their show reel, and I think it's important to separate the two. Because you can still make a show reel from your previous exercises or excerpts from your film,
Or you
but
can
not
have
put that
one
pressure on
scene that's really good that you bring out for your show reel. Like if your whole film, you don't even have to finish the film to have some good things from that process to put on the show.
Yeah, we've learned that it doesn't have to be finished before you can put it into your portfolio.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people like seeing unfinished work.
So I'm just going to say, you know, there's, if you sort of take the artist's view that you're making a film and then you're making the whole film yourself, I kind of think we're working in a collaborative art. So I don't want to take away a student's right to come up with a story, because I don't care what position you hold in the pipeline if you're not story oriented so that you can benefit the process of the production. You're probably never going to get out of the niche you're in. So I want to keep that sort of, we are all in service to this story, so what do you know about story, no matter whether you want to be a modeler or a background painter or whatever it is you want to be, you are in service to the story. So I don't want to take that piece out. But beyond that, once you've struggled with that story, you know, every student in our senior class has to present a film that they'd love to make. But then they can collaborate with other films. And if you're a background painter and your neighbors are really good animator, then you just trade scenes in your film. So you still have a creative story piece in your film, but you're still working to your strengths. And if you allow that collaboration to occur within the studio, then the student who wants to be an animator has a bunch of animation because they've taken the hard scenes out of 2 or 3 other films and carried them off for the student who couldn't. And the person who's a great background designer has done the major background keys in 5 films, and they all get credit on the films, and they get a reel. So I think the idea is we're a collaborative art. We're not, there are a handful of artists that make a living by themselves in, you know, however, but not very many. Most of us work in collaborative teams.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what they do over there at Gobelin and France? They do a collaborative effort where they have like
different schools. There's some schools in China also where like the entire class makes the film.
Okay.
I just want to. I think this is great, by the way, and I think a lot of things people are saying they don't.
I was going to say, I want to acknowledge Sharon Sussman, University of Hawaii, and you have to tell us, how do we get a job in your school?
Animation Educator Forum in Hawaii.
We only have about 5 minutes,
yeah.
And I want to just swing us a little bit back. I mean, the discussion films was great, but back to the fest thing. One of the things that I think is an issue for all of us, and maybe it's a topic we'll pick up later on too, is I know there's been encouragement from NASAD for us to get involved with incorporating undergrads in our own creative work. But when it comes to films and film festivals, with faculty on the credit list, you're making a face already, this becomes an issue because then they are not qualified for like the student fests and things. So I'm curious about how people have handled that, how involved do faculty become, and how do you get students involved? I think Andy,
can I ask a clarification here really quick, and then I won't answer the question, someone else can. You said encourage to get our undergraduates involved in our work.
Yes,
and
our
work
scholarship
is not student films. So if I hire one of my students with an internship into working on one of my films, which would be unfair and unethical, I think, to give interns in that way, then it's my film, and I'm entering it as non-student film in full-on festivals. It's an entire flip coin if you're talking about professionals who happen to be teaching, working on films that are portrayed as student films at a festival.
And I've seen it happen.
Yes.
And I think I agree with you, but it's an interesting challenge for us, I think, as educators, to look at this. And I've had students ask to be involved in films I'm working on. I'm like, no, this is my film. You need to make yours. It needs to be separate from what I'm doing. Yet here's this encouragement we're receiving to bring it together. And I guess that's I'm interested in points of view like the one you just shared.
I just like to make sort of one sort of big point, which is that something in general, because in a way you can start, when someone starts to say don't make a film, it's also saying that the whole idea of a festival is also becoming a little unknown. So a lot of what's gets shown at a festival are student films more than most independents can't afford to do it anymore. But really part of what it is being the festivals honor the film. In other words, they honor the whole thinking. The industry, if anybody ever learns their little bit, those people come up to the top and try to make whole films. No one has actually learned how to actually put the whole piece together. You start to see it in the filmmaking all through Hollywood that people don't know what a third act is anymore, for example. So how are they ever going to come out, if they ever have at least a first chance of understanding what it is to try and tell a coherent story? So the festival actually supports the storytelling.
Person 10 years down the line in their career.
That's right, exactly. So it's a beginning point.
So I've been on both sides of that fence and on the fence as far as putting my own name in the credit. I started out 10 years ago teaching team production classes, and I was like, no, there's no way I'll ever put my name on the credits. It's just a student film, blah, blah, blah. And then I had some classes where it was just like so difficult to get everybody to do what they were supposed to do. And I worked so hard. I committed to the film. I wanted it to get finished. I wanted it to go into festivals, and worked so hard on it myself that I ended up putting my name in the credits. And now that I'm back, and this was more in Atlanta, and would enter it into festivals not as a student film. I would enter it just as just a short film. And that went well. That actually went well for one of the films that we made in Atlanta. Since I've been here, I don't do that anymore because I didn't want to kill myself anymore. I teach the class, I give them guidance, and I let them make it. And they, you know, if they want to thank me at the end, that's a whole other thing. But.
I teach a collaborative class, and to do a collaborative class, you have to do a lot of work. So basically, my role is always producer, and although sometimes I'll end up doing the editing, but I never put my name as producer or editor or director. I always just do faculty advisor, and it would disqualify for something like the Annie Awards if there were faculty on the credits anyway.
What is that?
Right.
If you were fulfilling those roles.
But it's always the students do all the work, and I'm basically just being like a producer, which I think is the job of faculty. It's very similar. So primarily is producing, and more recently students have been doing the editing. But again, the editing, you know, I don't think of that really. You know, I think it's really all collaborative. They're doing all the hard work and all the creative work. So I never put my name as any of those other roles. I never would on one of those collaborative films because it's a student film.
Okay, we are just about out of time, but I know you had your hand up. Did you share?
Oh, yeah. I think what the difference is, and I like the point about the division of labor and kind of how that's been a big issue. If you go to SIGGRAPH, you'll notice that a lot of studios are just being contracted out just to do the folds in a leather glove. I mean, in the way the industry is, if you're applying for a lot of positions, if you're doing some of these portfolio reviews, they go, well, what are you? They're not asking you to be a person who knows all parts of the process. They're looking for kind of, I guess, to put it unkindly, cogs. They are, and I think the idea of having the students working with a teacher's project is more about teaching them how to work for someone else than to work for themselves. And the realities of the industry and you know, capitalism and art is that you're often encouraged and trained to do the piece that you might have excel at without necessarily understanding the entire process. And
they're looking for problem solvers.
They're kind of, but they're not as interested in someone who can do everything and rise up. They're very happy being where they are. I mean, looking at the Pixar wage fixing scandal and how that really prevented a lot of people from being able to move up into new positions, how that, you know, lowered competition. There isn't, you know, if you're looking at, you know, artistry from an industry that is ruled by, you know, numbers and people trying to keep everyone else down, that's the result you're going to get ideologically, you know, through the schools and how they want to educate people and how they want to kind of corral them into, okay, you're good at backgrounds, that's all you're going to do.
That's true for the big companies.
That's the big, and
the smaller companies, they do want generalists.
Small ones.
But
the hard part
most
is let's say parents, for example, or many students, they're not aware of, even the small companies don't exist. They're often uncredited in a lot of productions, or it's very confusing. So the students really only know about the big studios. So of course, when they're doing initial research on whether they want to go into animation or when they're first applying to jobs, that's who they're going to look at first.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the I work for Disney, I work for no one mentality that you'll see a lot. And those companies use that very effectively. You know, like they're able to get people to work in terrible conditions because, like, I did it, I made it, I worked for Disney, I don't care, I worked 60 hours a week with no extra pay. I did it!
Well,
It's like that movie Dream on Little Dreamer. Like, these people are horribly abused and they have Stockholm syndrome. It's
When we started, they used to call it dues.
Yeah.
It's like you get screwed a couple of times. It's like, yeah, paying your dues. Yeah. So, well, anyway, I gotta wrap this up and everything. I want to thank. This was a really exciting 45 minutes. You know, I wish we could get a little longer, but the Animation Educators Forum likes to keep this going. Like, the reason we started this whole thing was because we suddenly realized that, God, there's people teaching the same topic in, like, all these various universities, and nobody's talking to one another. You know, everybody's got their Preston Blair book, and that's about it. You know, and it's like, let's get together and just talk shop. You know, it's just kind of fun. So
there are cards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We have cards here and the website and stuff. And
touch base with us. You can get onto the forum and participate.
And I appreciate if you meet more than once a year.
That'd be nice.
You know what? We actually usually do a general membership meeting in March. So we did not have last year, but we will absolutely do one this year.
Yeah, we meet at
SIGGRAPH. Now that we have the card, you can bug us to make sure we do it.
Yeah, we try to meet at SIGGRAPH every year too.
And we did this. We also have another meeting like we do with USC. Like springtime.
Yeah, that's what
I also want to thank Patrick Dupree over here for making